The hidden language of reality, how synchronicities guide your destiny. What if every moment you thought was mere chance was actually a message, carefully, lovingly placed, like a secret letter tucked into the seams of your life by something far older and wiser than human logic? What if reality itself was alive? Not a cold, dead machine grinding aimlessly through the void, but a sentient, breathing intelligence, pulsing with awareness, humming with intent. For thousands upon thousands of years, across continents and civilizations, mystics, shamans, sages, and philosophers insisted on this truth, that the cosmos is not indifferent. It is riddled with meaning. In the dream temples of ancient Egypt, in the divination rituals of the I Ching, in the whispered prayers to the Great Spirit, the message has always been the same. Reality is alive, it is conscious, it is communicative. And you are not merely walking through it, you are in conversation with it. But somewhere along the twisting roads of history, we lost this knowing. Modernity taught us to mute the poetry of the world. Wonder was replaced with cynicism, mystery was traded for measurements, meaning was reduced to molecules. Haven't you wondered, even in fleeting moments, if life itself might be orchestrated by unseen hands? Reality has been singing to you. Through dreams, through chance encounters, through signs and symbols so subtle they almost slip past your waking mind. You've simply been taught to stop listening. But what if you could remember? What if you could relearn the secret grammar of existence, the hidden alphabet behind your everyday experiences, and open a two-way dialogue with the cosmos itself? And once you remember, the universe is alive. Nothing is ever the same again. Synchronicity, the universe's handwriting. Carl Jung and the discovery of the cosmic mirror. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst and mystic philosopher, was no ordinary thinker. While Freud delved into the tangled forests of personal trauma, Jung dared to climb higher, to peer into the collective sky of human experience. It was there, gazing into the swirling patterns between psyche and cosmos, that he coined a term for something most had only felt but could never name: synchronicity. Synchronicity, Jung wrote, described those meaningful coincidences that defy logic, those strange, shimmering moments where outer reality and inner experience align with uncanny precision. These weren't just accidents of chance, they weren't hallucinations, they were messages, stitched through time and space by invisible hands. Over decades of clinical observation, Jung came to see a pattern. When the psyche entered a state of emotional intensity, especially at moments of transformation, crisis, or profound questioning, reality itself seemed to respond. He proposed a radical theory. Synchronicities are not random. They emerge from the collective unconscious, a vast hidden reservoir of symbols, dreams, and archetypes shared by all humanity. It's as if we are all swimming in the same psychic ocean, sending ripples through the surface that eventually shape the events of our lives. In Jung's view, synchronicities are archetypal echoes, reverberations of universal themes like love, death, transformation, and rebirth. They aren't random fireworks, but signposts, carefully positioned by the deeper self to point us toward hidden truths about who we are and what paths we are meant to walk. And here's the most staggering part. Jung believed that when we pay attention to synchronicities, when we treat them not as noise but as sacred whispers, we begin to participate consciously in the unfolding of our destiny. Life ceases to be a random sequence of events and becomes a meaningful conversation between you and the cosmos itself. Ancient wisdom, reality as a web. Long before Jung, ancient cultures also knew reality was connected by unseen threads. Akasha, the Vedic tradition. The Akasha is the invisible, eternal field where every thought, action, and event is recorded, a cosmic memory bank that connects all existence. As above, so below. Hermetic philosophy. This principle teaches that the patterns of the universe are reflected in all levels of reality, from the vastness of galaxies to the depths of the human soul. Taoist nature signs. Taoists believe that nature is a living text, constantly offering guidance through the subtle movements of wind, water, and creatures, if one slows down enough to listen. Indigenous shamanic dreaming. To indigenous shamans, the world is a conscious dream where every animal, rock, and cloud is alive with messages meant to guide the dreamer. This was not metaphor to them, it was an operating manual. Quantum physics. Science rediscovers the mystical. Here's where it gets even more thrilling. Take quantum entanglement, for instance. Scientists discovered that two particles once connected remain bonded no matter how far apart they travel, even across entire galaxies. When one particle changes, the other reacts instantly, as if space and time no longer apply. Einstein, baffled by this, famously called it spooky action at a distance. But is it really so spooky? Or is it simply a modern rediscovery of ancient truths? That all things are woven together by invisible threads, strands of a living web that pulses beyond our senses. And it gets even stranger. Consider the observer effect, one of the most radical findings in quantum physics. At the subatomic level, particles exist in a state of probability, mere clouds of potential, until they are observed. The very act of measurement causes them to collapse into a definite state. Consciousness doesn't just witness reality, it helps shape it. The universe doesn't unfold mechanically, indifferent to your gaze. It responds to it listens, exactly as sages and shamans have taught. Your mind and reality are not separate. They are dance partners in an infinite waltz. And then there's the breathtaking holographic principle. Imagine a three-dimensional world encoded on a two-dimensional surface like a cosmic projection. In this view, every piece of the universe contains the blueprint for the whole, just like the ancient Hermetic maxim, as above, so below. It suggests that your every cell, every photon around you, carries the signature of the entire cosmos. You are not standing on the edge of existence looking in. You are woven into its very fabric, a reflection of infinity wearing a human face. In light of all this, you are not, and never were, a passive observer of a cold, indifferent world. You are a co-creator in a dynamic, participatory universe. Your attention, your dreams, your very awareness, these are not meaningless flickers lost in the void. They are sacred forces, sculpting reality in ways both subtle and profound. And the more you tune your awareness, the more you'll realize reality isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. How your brain filters reality. Why don't we see these connections all the time? Enter the reticular activating system, RAS, a part of your brain that filters incoming data based on what you subconsciously believe is important. Ever notice when you're thinking about a certain car model, you suddenly see it everywhere? That's the RAS at work. The reticular activating system, or RAS, is like the gatekeeper of your brain. Every second, your senses take in millions of bits of information. Sights, sounds, smells, textures. Way more than you could ever consciously notice. Think of it like the algorithm behind your social media feed. It shows you more of what you interact with and hides what you ignore. In other words, you train your brain to notice the magic that's been hiding in plain sight all along. When you start paying attention to synchronicities, your RAS begins highlighting them for you, making you a conscious participant in the universe's dialogue. This isn't wishful thinking, it's neuroscience catching up to mysticism. The suppression of the signal. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, truly, why were you trained, almost from birth, to ignore the subtle language of reality? Because a human being who is deeply connected to their intuition, who trusts their inner signals, who sees patterns beyond the noise, is very, very difficult to control. When you realize your thoughts, emotions, and intentions actively shape the world around you, you no longer rely on external systems to define reality for you. You stop living reactively and start living creatively. And a sovereign individual, someone who navigates life by inner authority rather than outer programming, is ungovernable by fear, media narratives, and manufactured consensus. That's why, across history, those who held esoteric knowledge were often persecuted, ridiculed, or forced into secrecy. Some examples of how this suppression played out. The burning of the Library of Alexandria. One of the greatest repositories of ancient knowledge, including science, astrology, philosophy, and spirituality, was deliberately destroyed. Some historians suggest political motives. A less educated populace is easier to dominate. Religious reframing of mysticism. Early mystic traditions such as Gnosticism, which taught that divine knowledge comes from within, were systematically demonized as heresy by institutionalized religions. Mystical intuition was replaced with rigid dogma, where only external authorities, priests, kings, could, quote, speak for God. Colonial erasure of indigenous wisdom. Indigenous cultures around the world, who lived by signs, dreams, and deep symbiosis with nature, were suppressed, labeled as, quote, primitive, and forcibly converted or, quote, civilized. Their complex spiritual technologies were dismissed as superstition. Modern scientific materialism. In the 19th and 20th centuries, science increasingly adopted strict materialism, the idea that only what can be measured is real. Fields like parapsychology, the study of psychic phenomena, were marginalized. Intuition, synchronicity, and consciousness were written off as, quote, anomalies, rather than legitimate subjects of study. Technically, this suppression works through cognitive programming. You are trained to prioritize only what is visible, repeatable, and measurable. Your reticular activating system is conditioned to highlight data that fits into an approved reality model, a mechanical, meaningless universe. Anything that hints at interconnectedness, magic, or personal power is dismissed before it even reaches your conscious awareness. In simpler terms, they didn't just suppress information, they suppressed your ability to perceive. How to relearn the language of the universe. 1. Cultivate sacred attention. Carry a small journal. Record every synchronicity, numbers, songs, symbols, strange meanings. Over time, patterns emerge like constellations. 2. Ask bold questions. Ask the universe for guidance. Be specific. Then, trust the answers, even if they come in strange wrappings. 3. Heal the shadow. Resistance and fear often block synchronicities. Healing emotional wounds through shadow work, meditation, inner child reconnection clears the static from your signal. 4. Create ritual spaces. Make altars, light candles, meditate under the stars. These acts are not superstition. They are technologies for tuning your consciousness. 5. Follow the threads. When something strange happens, a sign, a coincidence, honor it, investigate. Sometimes it's just a nudge. Sometimes it's an invitation to a whole new life path. Synchronicity as your birthright. Here's the radical truth. You were never meant to stumble through life blindly. You were born into a sentient universe, humming with secret music, overflowing with clues, maps, and luminous breadcrumbs. Synchronicity is your native language. You've just forgotten how to speak it. When you awaken to this, life changes. You move from reacting to co-creating, from fear to wonder. You realize the universe isn't testing you, it's collaborating with you.